So I was scrolling through YouTube a few weeks ago when I saw this thumbnail. What looks like 8 men locked in a room being slowly filled with water until they drown. I don't know how many times I've seen this in films and TV shows, but the idea of it actually happening in real life was so crazy that I just felt like I had to watch this video. So I start the video and I'm introduced to the premise. You get Korean Special Forces soldiers from all over the country. You split them into teams and you have them being coached by different Special Forces commanders from different Special Forces from all over the world. You have one team being coached by an SAS fighter, one team being coached by Swedish Special Forces commander, one team being coached by an American Green Beret, and one team being coached by a Korean Special Forces commander. As soon as I saw the intro, I was immediately invested in what might happen. The contestants arrive one by one. They're given no instructions. They just have to line up and wait and see what happens. All of them are soldiers, but some of them are from the Navy, some of them are from the Army, and some of them are from the Air Force. The only two that break this pattern are these two guys that turn up in suits. And everybody is looking at them and saying, what are these guys? Are they K-pop stars? What are they doing here? And it turns out that these two are Korean spies. They're a part of the Secret Service, known as Intelligence Command, the KDIC. And these are probably two of the most interesting people throughout the entire show. The whole time, you're wondering, who are these guys? And what are they doing here? They're not allowed to say anything about their past. It's entirely confidential. But they're going to compete with all these soldiers. And it's just interesting to think, how does a spy do things differently to a soldier? So they start off with the first competition, which is pretty simple. They put on these rucksacks and they run really far in whatever they happen to be wearing right now, which sucks for the guys who showed up in suits and dress shoes, because now they just have to run in that and somehow compete with these guys wearing combat boots. Not a second into the first challenge begins, one of the spy's bags breaks and he has to carry it on his hands the whole time. And despite this, he still manages to keep up with everybody. But how bad can your luck be that as soon as the challenge begins, your bag immediately breaks? I mean, come on. The competition starts, and despite all of these guys being special forces, there are some guys who are clearly ahead of the pack. For one, there's this guy. He must be some kind of super soldier, because not only is he ahead of the pack now, but throughout the entire show, he just excels in every single way. He comes out on top. Now, what's really impressive is that one of the spies in suits manages to keep ahead of the pack as well, with pretty much in the top 5, I think. That was really impressive. Both spies somehow make it into the top 10 despite wearing dress shoes and a full suit, and one of them carrying their bag with their hands. Number 1 out of everyone is of course this guy who I mentioned earlier, who also happens to be a world champion firefighter at the World Champion Firefighter Games, which I did not know was a thing, but he's the champion of it. The first 10 get to put their name up on a board, and they get to be a part of Team 1, which is the top team. And then all of the ones after that are part of the bottom team. And those are the teams for the future. It's Team 1 competing against Team 2. Yeah, so once the running ends, they're both put into separate accommodation according to their team. In the middle of the night, when every single one of them is asleep, a van arrives just outside. And somehow, despite everyone else being sound asleep, 2 people wake up. Just 2. The spies, they both wake up to that slight sound and immediately start looking around. Now, this wasn't long before the second challenge began. water immediately starts flooding in to the rooms that they find themselves in, and they all start panicking. They're given 20 minutes to try and find a way out as their alarm's blaring, and there's water flooding the room until they drown. Imagine the panic you would be in if you found yourself in this situation. With only 20 minutes to escape before you drown, and you just have to find a way out. But everything is sealed. Everything is completely solid. And somehow, you've just got to escape. Watching them all stay calm, despite the circumstances, was really interesting. But Team 1 seemed much calmer than Team 2, and seemed to work much better and much faster. Suspiciously so. How are they doing so much better than Team 2? How were they responding this much better and this much calmer to the situation that they had both been thrown into completely by surprise? Turns out there's a good reason for it. Before the night started, one guy investigated the container they were inside of and found it suspicious. He looked around and he looked at the way it had been made, and he realized that this is a container that could be flooded with water, and somehow this guy predicted that that is exactly what would happen. And he even told his team members, guys, I think they're going to flood this place with water. And nobody believed him. Nobody in there believed that they were all going to be flooded with water. But just from him saying that, despite that nobody believed him, they were all far more prepared than Team 2. And so I just thought that was really interesting, how you can have a smart guy on your team who realizes something like this before it even happens. I mean, who would have been able to predict something this insane would actually happen? So eventually, after a lot of clamoring about trying everything, trying to rip everything off the walls, trying to kick things down and find a way out, they eventually do find that they can escape through the roof. There are keys hidden in there, but it's a ring with like 60 different keys on. And this thing is just a red herring, just to distract them, see if they waste their time mucking about with a million different keys. Really, if you find the right part of the roof, they were able to just push their way out and escape. So both teams are able to get out. And once they do, are they given a rest? Are they allowed to relax? No, star jumps immediately. They immediately get them doing star jumps. I don't know whether this is good for you after you've just been covered in water. Maybe it's to keep them warm and keep them healthy. But it kind of seems like they just want to punish them further. This all happened at 5 a.m, just to be clear. Most of us can't even get up at 5 a.m, let alone fight for our lives. Now, the very next day, after they've been forced to run until they're exhausted, after they've been woken up at 5 a.m. and almost drowned, now they do an obstacle course, an insanely grueling obstacle course. During the obstacle course, they have to climb, run, do monkey bars, and eventually drag tires for the final part to really separate who are the most physically fit fighters from the less physically fit ones. And so after all that, you think finally these guys are going to be given a rest, right? Finally, these guys are going to be given a break, not pushed any further. They've already been pushed to the brink. But no, there's one more challenge to end the day. And it's for all of them to get into a mud pit and try to drag a tire to each of their own corner while competing against others and see who can win. All of this. And it's been 2 days. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and feel free to subscribe.